Hey everybody, welcome back to Premiere OnScript and welcome back to part 2 of our project example of using a CSV file to import the data into Premiere and get it to do something really cool. What we're going to be doing is, if you haven't looked at part 1 of this video, we're going to be taking this boring CSV file right here, and we're going to be turning it into this. A nice organized Premiere project which has clips imported in the number in which they're listed in that CSV file, and then turned into subclips based on the in points and the out points and the names provided to us in that CSV. Now, I know it's been a little while since I posted the last video. Actually, to be precise, it's been like a month ago. So thank you guys for sticking around if you watched the part 1 and then were like, when the hell is this guy going to put out the part 2 video? What I have to tell you is that over that past month, I've been looking into my code and trying to really make my code more smart and more efficient, which thus is going to help out this tutorial, because turns out that what I thought was going to take a 3-part series in order to get this kind of lesson across in these tutorials is only going to take 2, and we're going to knock the rest out of it right now today. So let's jump into it and finish up this script. Now, if you'll remember where we were last time, where we left off was basically this subclips bin was not here, and there was nothing in the autoseek. Okay, so this is what we had last time we were complete with our script. We were stopping off right here, and we were alerting ourselves the info array, and I just canceled out of that, so whatever. So we were alerting ourselves what the info array was, which the info array is just where we are storing the data in our JavaScript of everything that was in this CSV file. So our next step, if we're right here, what we're going to do next is, loop through these, and we want to create the subclips. First, we want to make a subclip bin, though, in order to have a place to put the subclips into. So let's jump back to the code and let's do that. The first thing we're going to do, and we've done this before in previous movies and in the part 1 to this movie, is we're going to go app.project, root item, create bin, and just call it subclips. And then we're going to use this find bin index function, which we covered in the last movie, which just searches the project and returns us the index of the bin that we're searching for right here. And we're going to store that in a variable called moveTo, because this is where we're going to want all of our subclips when we create them to move to. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we're also going to want to drop these subclips into our sequence, right? The sequence that we created at the very beginning of the project up here. Matter of fact, one of the first things we did in this project. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here, and we're going to go just do a for loop through all of the sequences in the project by going a equals 0, a is less than app.project.sequences.numSequences, a++. And then on each iteration of that for loop, we are going to ask it if the name app.project.sequences.a.name is equal to autoSeek, because that's what we named our sequence when we created it up there. Now, once we found that match, we are going to go app.project.activeSequence is equal to this sequence that we just found, because we want that to be our active sequence that we can easily just insert clips into. So once we've done this, we've got our sequence that we've created at the beginning created, and we've got the subclips bin created and stored. Now we just have to loop through this original clips bin, match the clip to the correct line in the CSV file, and then create the subclip based on all of our timecode and our names and stuff like that. So this is going to be the big loop. This is where there's going to be a couple functions embedded in it, but I think it's going to go pretty quick. So let's just jump right in. Basically, we already have the import bin. We already have this original clips bin, the index of that stored up here, right here on line 37, 38. You can see app.project root aim create bin. We created this original clips bin, and then we stored that import bin index. Well, since we have that, we are going to, where we are right here, store the number of items inside that import bin. And then we're going to loop through them right here with this for loop. So for a equals 0, as long as a is less than num items, a++. And then we'll just, so we can make it quick and easy, we will create a variable current item and set it to import bin.children a. So now this is the, this current item is the current clip we're looping through. Now we will start looping through our info array in order to match up the current item, our current clip that we're looking at in the project, with its matching line of information in our info array. So we'll go for variable I equals 1, as long as I is less than infoArray.length, I++. And then we're going to test for two things. Down in this next line, we're going to test for two things. Now, there shouldn't be anything funky in this bin. We've created this and we've moved these clips into it. So there shouldn't be anything in there. But just in case there is, in case you decide to do something else with it, add another bin or other items into your project, while you're doing this script, what I want to make sure is before we run and try and create a new subclip, we want to ensure that the item that we're on is in fact a clip. So we're going to test for this. We're going to say if current item dot type equals 1, which is just the Premiere code for is type clip. Then we're going to move on to the next test. We're going to say if current item dot type is equal to 1 and current item dot node ID is equal to infoArray I dot length minus 1. Okay, that's a mouthful. I wrote the code and I'm looking at this little bit right here and it confuses me. So let's just walk through this really quickly. You got to notice that right here, this is our info array. And this is a multi-tiered array, if you'll remember from last movie. And so this is the second block of that array. This is the first. And remember, this is equivalent to the line in our CSV. So if in this case, I is equal to 1, I is this entire line. Making this next block over here, this next chunk of brackets, equal to each individual item separated by the commas, right? So if we wanted to grab the last thing on this line, what we would have to do is ask for the length of this minus 1, right? Because if we were to ask it the length of this right here, it would say 1, 2, 3, 4, but arrays start at 0. So to find the last item in array terms, we would have to go 4 minus 1. So that's exactly what we're doing right here. InfoArray I dot length minus 1. But just remember that in our previous movie, we stored an extra chunk of information at the end of that line in the form of the item's node ID. Now we did this because when you import an item into Premiere, it gives it this unique identifier. And who knows, maybe when you're going through your CSV, the clip names are going to be the same or something like that where things could get confused. But we know that this node ID is always going to be unique. And so that's the thing that we're going to be matching up against. So we push that to the end of the info array line. And now we are going infoArray I.length minus 1 and testing the current item's node ID against that. So hopefully you guys can wrap your head around that. I know it can be a bit confusing, but we're matching the current node ID to the stored imported items node ID. And if you found that, then you've isolated the line of infoArray I in which all of your data is going to be living on. Your time codes, your in point, your out point, and your clip name. So next thing, speaking of endpoints and outpoints, we're going to make two variables, call it variable endpoint, variable outpoint, and we're going to pass into this timecode to seconds function infoArray I.1, which is going to be I, whatever line you're on, and the 1 index of the array, which is going to be the second item. So here 503, up here there's 232. And we're passing that into this timecode to seconds function, which if we go down here into my functions list, is this really nice little function where you're passing in the array object. You are going to create a variable timecode array. You're going to split the array object by the colon. So when we look at this, say this time code right here, 2:32, split that in half, remove the colon, and then it's going to create an array with 2 slots. Slot 0 is going to be 2, and slot 1 is going to be 32. So now here's the funny part. It's that Premiere doesn't work with time codes neat and tidy like this. Premiere works in seconds. So it wouldn't be asking for 2 minutes and 32 seconds. It would be asking for, what would that be? 152 seconds. So we have to do that math for Premiere if we wanted to create our subclips. So now that we have that split up into this array, we can go variable timecode is equal to number timecode array 0 times 60, calculating the minutes, plus number timecode array 1, being the seconds. Add those two together, and we're going to get a nice number that's going to say how many seconds we want the in point or the out point to be. And then we're going to return that number. Now, I just want to touch on this really quick. When we're bringing all this information out of the CSV into our JavaScript, into our extend script, it's reading this all as text. It's a character text data type. And we want that to be, in order to add it up together, we want that to be a number. So that's why we're doing this number and surrounding the information in there so that it returns a number. And JavaScript might do this automatically, but I just think it's good practice to make sure you know what type of form you're importing data into your scripts. So since we're talking about that, I mean, this should actually be around the timecode array right here. Because we are going to be multiplying it times a number data type right here. So there you go. That's why it's the timecode, and then it's going to return the timecode back. So now we've got our, if we come down and find it, we've got our inpoint, timecode to seconds, info array I1. Then our outpoint, timecode to seconds, info array I2. Easy enough there, right, to do that second one. And now we have all the information we need to create our subclip. What we're going to do is we're going to go variable new sub. We're going to take our current item and pass the method create subclip. The first argument we're going to pass in is going to be the name that we want that subclip to be renamed to. And just like we have the timecode information right here and right here, we're going to know that in the 0 spot of that CSV is the name that we want that clip to be. So we're going to name it info array I0. Then we've already calculated the inpoint, already calculated the outpoint, and now we have these last 3 arguments back here, which are going to be boundaries, take video, and take audio. Now these last 2 are pretty easy. Let's talk about this boundaries right here, which I have currently set to 0. This is a binary. You can either have it be 0 or 1. If it's 0, it means you're just putting that clip in there, and the editor who's using it can modify it whatever they want. If you put in like 50 seconds of length in the subclip, but they need it to be 55, they can extend the ends, whether it be at the beginning or at the end. They can extend that out to include some of the footage that was in that original source clip. But if you set that to 1, it's going to make harsh boundaries, meaning that if you put in, a 20-second subclip, it's going to stay 20 seconds long, and they can't extend the ins or outs longer. So I like to give the editors leeway. I think that's the way to go. I leave that at 0, and then these other ones, what we have set to 1, are also binaries for take video and take audio. And if you have 0 there, it's not going to take whichever one you decide to put 0 as. If I wanted it to take the video and not take the audio, I would put it at 0 here. But I want to take everything, and then once we do that, it's going to generate our subclip. And the great thing about that is that it then returns us the index path to that subclip. So because right up here at the very beginning of this part 2 video, we created this new subclips bin, we stored the index to that in move2, we can create this new subclip right here and then immediately do new sub.movebin move2 and move the subclip into the subclips bin. Now we also still have this we still have that index path intact. And so what we're going to do is we'll come down here. We're going to go variable active seq equals app.project.active sequence, which, if you remember, we set the active sequence to the sequence we created in the beginning. Then we're going to run this function, place clip, active seek, new sub, and buffer time. Now let's go back to the very beginning of the first part 1 movie. We have this constant right here, buffer time equals 2. That's just a number in seconds of how much time I want between my clips when I lay them in the timeline. So now that I pass all these into the place clip function, we can come down and look at the place clip function. So now that we're in here, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set the subclip, set scale to frame size, because I don't like my clips coming in and being all wonky in dimensions and stuff like that. Let's just bring them in, scale them up to frame size, that way I can see them. Then we're going to come down here and we're going to do an if-else statement. And what we're testing for is we're testing the video track of our active sequence that we're going to be putting these onto to see if there are already any clips on that. So right here, we're doing if ActiveSeek.VideoTracks0, assuming that we're putting this on the very first video track, .clips.numItems is equal to 0. Well, then there's nothing on there. We can go ahead and go ActiveSeek.VideoTracks0, insert clip, and then insert our subclip right at timecode 0, right? There's nothing on there. We don't have to worry about it. Now, if you're a little hazy with how to insert clips, you could always go back to the YouTube channel and go to video number 11, mute and disable tracks, adding clips into the timeline. This will go over how to add clips into the timeline. But if we just go back to the code now, yeah, we're just seeing if there's any tracks on there. If not, just throw it in at 0. Now, if there are tracks on there, we have to go and look at the last clip on that track, look at the time code at the end of that, add the buffer time, and then place the clip there. So what we're going to do is come into this else statement, go variable numClips, ActiveSeek.VideoTrack0, clips.numItems, asking how many items are on that track, how many clips are on that track. And then we're going to calculate the insert time, which for us is going to be ActiveSequence.VideoTrack0, clips.numClips minus 1. Remember, same principle when you're looking for the last item of an array. You take the number of items in that array and minus it by 1 because the array starts at 0. Then we're going to go .end .seconds, returning us the end of that final clip in seconds, and then plus number buffer. Now, we talked about number earlier up here. Actually, now that I think about it, this is a number, and it's not coming across as a string out of the CSV, so we can remove this number right here and just add on buffer to the insert time. And then, once again, we have all of our data that we need. We go ActiveSeek, VideoTrack0, insert clip, subclip at insert time. Down here, we have this clip counter, which I have commented out. You can remember at the beginning, we declared all these import count, sub counter, clip counter, and those are things that sometimes I include in code if I want to alert the user at the end saying like, oh, you imported this many files, you made this many subclips, you placed this many clips. That way they can see if there's any inconsistencies. Maybe you imported 7 clips, you created 7 subclips, and then you only placed 6 clips into the timeline. You can see, or just give feedback to the user on what they just accomplished. So you can include these if you want to generate a report or an alert at the end of your script. But what this is going to do is it's going to pop back out of place clip, and it's going to go through this loop, looping through the items and original clips, and you're going to get to the end and you're going to have your sequence all created. So if we run this, let's see if we did the code right. We'll choose our CSV, choose our sequence, and then once again, wait for the bottleneck of this script, which is actually importing each one of those files. It's going to alert us our info array, which we should actually comment out. But anyways, I'll come and comment that out right now. And then, boom, there we go. We have our subclips bin, we have our original clips bin, we have a sequence, we have all of those clips placed on our sequence, nice, organized, with 2 seconds in between each one. So thank you for all of you who watched part 1 of this video and have been waiting over the past month to see how it wraps up. Thanks for your patience and waiting for this one to come out. I'm working on some cool stuff. We're going to have some cool videos coming in the future. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, any features that Premiere can or can't do, any requests for videos to do in the future, leave a comment, or you can go over to the Premiere OnScript website, shoot me a message somehow and let me know what you guys want. And once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.